Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm so glad that this is a very good topic. And you are all aware that you've been hearing stories since we started yesterday. And this is part of the whole thing we've came for. I love hearing stories. And I love to teach it too. And I'm going to do something which is called board walking. How many of you have had that? Board walking.
Board walking?
Board walking, yes.
By the seaside?
Close enough.
I'm close.
Yeah, it's close enough.
Board walking.
Board walking. You know, when your mom or your dad calls you, John! 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 How many times did that call you?
Three times.
Sit down.
Somewhere.
And they gave you the look. I need to tell you something very serious. And you know they're going to go into a long story. When I came in this morning, somebody was telling stories about the driver who drove them the wrong route. And he went on and on and on. This is a topic that has never been introduced or incorporated into any classroom discussion. When I did my research for my dissertation, I went from east to west. I think it's only in one university that storytelling has been incorporated into their syllabi. So I decided to use this for my dissertation. It was very, very interesting. So what I mean by board walking, I go back and forth different directions. That's what I mean by board walking. If you go board walking, you don't stay in one spot. You just want to see what is going on there, here, and you hear different stories from different people all the time. So when you hear different stories, you decide on what you want to believe or what you don't want to believe. So they have not used stories in our classrooms. And we use stories every day. Everything that we've been hearing from yesterday is nothing but stories. And people have used examples that are true, examples that are not true. So when you are teaching, you cannot afford not to use stories. Storytellers are very, very interesting to hear. And when you are listening, it involves so many factors. Some stories are true, and you decide in your mind, like, I don't want to believe that. And one of the gentlemen for us, keynote speakers this morning said, no one size can fit all. And that's why when we listen to some stories regarding what we're learning, you can tell that, okay, I can believe that. No, I don't want to believe that. So when you involve students as part of the instruction, you can learn from them as well. And I'll tell you some stories myself. When I was teaching in San Francisco, I had a class called Perspective of Language and Culture. I have never had such a class. I had 32 students. I didn't have 2 students from the same country. And when they gave the class to me to teach, and I had to rack my brain, how do I teach this class? Perspective of language and culture. It was so diverse. And when I told them about the class, that it contains everything they need to know about literature, about geography, about this or that, they didn't want to learn it. They didn't want to believe me. And I told them at the end of 10th week, they would love the class. And how do I get them interested? How did I get them interested?
Storytelling.
You told them a story.
How did you know? You are so good. I started telling them stories. And they were not receptive at all at first. And I told them, I said, well, it's your turn now to tell me stories. They didn't know anything. I said, okay, I want you to do me a big favor. Pick a poet from your country and write just A limerick. They look at each other like, what is a limerick? What's wrong with this guy? We don't even like stories. We don't even like literature. What? And I wrote it on the board that is a literature that is never more than 5 lines. And I said, okay, if you don't know about limericks, write a sonnet. They say, what's wrong with this guy? What is a sonnet? I was just trying to get them involved. That's a poem that is never more than 16 lines. You won't believe what happened. That's why I told her, just boardwalk. They wrote fantastic poem. I said, I don't care if you write it in your language or in English. And I told them, right now, translate it into English. This is English class. And they did. They started reading to the class. You could drop a pin on this carpet, you will hear it. It was beautiful. One lady came to me, I don't know what to write. I said, do you have a child? She said, yes. Write a story about your child. She wrote a beautiful poem and a story. So stories, you are hearing it all the time. I'm sorry. You are hearing it all the time. And why am I telling you this? When you are writing a curriculum, you have to involve your students. We cannot teach what we don't know. There are certain things you teach, and there are certain things you want them to know. They will fight it. Some of them will believe you, and some of them will believe you. In academic disciplines, if you have to break it down, you have to break it down for them to be able to understand. If they don't understand it, you will be lost and they will be lost. And they are not going to learn anything from you. And your time is going to be wasted. And once your time is wasted, you just feel you are not getting anywhere. So, this class may require you to deal with some problems. What kind of problems are you thinking about? Because some of them will put you on the spot. And they will ask you some questions that you may not be able to understand. I thought I was a disciplinarian since I was a foreigner, and now I'm teaching 30 students that are foreigners too. They challenged me so much to the point that I said, well, I have to be on top as an instructor. Nobody wanted to teach the class to start with. And when the academic dean gave it to me because you are a foreigner, you are going to teach foreigners like you. And I said, okay. And some of them will come to me after class. What do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? And I said, don't worry, I deal with it. And I will tell them stories to break it down. Oh, now, do you mean this? I said, no, I don't mean that. This is what I mean. And they would tell me stories from their countries to mean what I said, or to mean nothing close to what I've just told them. I said, okay, you want to know. Storytelling is not being used at all in this culture. Because when you start telling some people some stories, they can't relate to it. What do? They get turned off. And they look at you like, yes, tell me more. What else is new? And they start rolling their eyes. I've been in this culture for so long, and I found out two subjects that you cannot draw curriculum on or about that I've tried. Religious studies and music. Music happened to be my subject because I taught music in undergraduate level, classical music, mind you. You cannot draw a curriculum. There are some classes that you can draw curriculum right off, but because whatever is written from Russia, Germany, Poland, name it, is set. And religious studies is set. Well, whatever you want to do with other classes, you have to rack your brain to be able to tell them why it is. And when you are teaching some of these classes, it's got to be in narratives. What do you mean by narratives? You have to take time to collect data. Either you have to collect it storytelling, you have to listen to tapes, you have to collect data by collecting information from other people. You know, some people, they don't know anything about multicultural information. All they know is from what they learn from TV. But if you teach them what you know about multicultural discipline, they look at you because what you know about your own discipline in this culture is quite different from what other people will tell you about their discipline. Because when a colleague was talking about critical thinking the other day, critical thinking from my culture is quite different from critical thinking here. They sit you down and said, what is in there? You tell me, your brain. What do you use them for? To think. You have to answer them back. Are you using them? Yes. They will challenge you to critically think about what you are doing. This is part of what you put down in your curriculum. And when you put all these ideas together, we are constantly doing everything here. And my ideas is I've gotten into this program. I want to see how I can incorporate idea of what I've learned from all of you here and incorporate it into a curriculum and put it in front of my students to be able to use it. It's not going to be easy, but once you try something new, you learn something all the time. Teaching stories is easy, but you have to be grounded. What do I mean by grounded? You are the one telling stories. And if you are not able to tell them the true stories, like I said, stories are, curriculum is not set. It's constantly changing, evolving. One size doesn't fit all. Once you tell them something now, you have to think about what you have to tell them to mean something else or to mean the same thing in a different fashion. And once you are able to convince them that you know what you are doing, you have to be able to convince them that this is what you are talking about. Why do we tell stories? Because stories can solve problems. Stories solve problems. And if in different cultures, they solve problems with stories, how do they do that? They will tell us stories, and they expect you to think with them. From where I came from, some of you, from Nigeria, you know your grandmother will call you at night. You know it's story time, and at times you don't want to hear it. But they know if you're thinking with them, and they know if you are getting what they're trying to get across to you. This is part of learning that we grew up with. And this is part of what we incorporated into our stories growing up. And they ask you, they tell you a short story and they stop right there. And they ask you to go write it down and come back and tell them tomorrow. You better be prepared. They have ideas. This is what we grew up with. And some of the stories they tell us too, that's weaknesses and strength of some of the stories they tell us. We use them in our daily lives. And we have some authors here, like Genevieve Gay, who talks so much about cultural responsive teaching. I'm pretty sure some of you have heard of James Banks, Genevieve Gay, who talks so much about this. You have to know what you are talking about, and you have to be able to express yourself. And some of the materials used in some of multicultural thinking can be related to our daily lives. Like I said earlier, you cannot teach what you don't know. And you can relate to our daily lives too. What people are able to teach, they are able to believe. If you don't believe in what you are teaching, what's the point in teaching?